The silk of my wedding dress whispers against my skin like a liar's promise. 3 hours until I'm supposed to walk down that aisle, and here I stand in this suffocating bridal suite, listening to the people who should become my family tear me apart through a crack in the door. She's nothing but a social climber, Linda's voice slithers through. Did you see how she pretends to know about wine? As if marketing executives shop at Whole Foods instead of Walmart. I'm Eden, and this should have been the happiest day of my life. Instead, I'm pressed against cool mahogany, my perfectly manicured nails digging into my palms, while my future mother-in-law continues her character assassination. Ryan could have done so much better, Olivia chimes in. Remember Caroline from his college days? At least she came from the right background. The right background. I taste copper and realize I've bitten the inside of my cheek. My father's success apparently counts for nothing because he built it himself instead of inheriting it. The irony would be delicious if it wasn't so bitter. Well, at least she's good with money. Linda's laugh sounds like breaking glass. Heaven knows Ryan needs that with his creative career choices. My stomach turns. The financial records I discovered last week flashed through my mind. Transfers from my account to the Bennett family business, authorized by Ryan. The man I'm supposed to marry in 3 hours has been bleeding my savings dry to prop up his family's failing reputation. Mother, please. That's George, Ryan's father, his weak protest barely audible. The guests will hear. I'll let them hear, Linda says. Everyone knows she bought her way into this family. The only question is whether she'll figure out Ryan's little arrangement before or after the honeymoon. My hands shake as I reach for my phone. The voice memo app is already open. I've learned from experience that proof matters more than pride. The red recording light blinks like a warning signal as their words continue to flow. Did you see her father trying to discuss investments with the Hamiltons at the rehearsal dinner? Olivia's voice drips with disdain. So nouveau richiturt. I think about Ryan, probably lounging in his suite right now, checking his reflection and practicing his camera-ready smile. The same smile he wore when he swore he'd never let his family come between us. The same smile he flashed while transferring thousands from my account to theirs. A knock at the door makes me jump. Eden? Honey, are you ready for hair and makeup? My mother's voice, warm and genuine, cuts through the poison. Just a minute, I call back, my voice steadier than I feel. The recording continues as I move away from the door, capturing Linda's final verdict. Well, as long as she keeps signing those checks, I suppose we can tolerate her at Christmas. Though God knows what we'll do if they have children. Can you imagine trying to explain that background at the country club? I stop the recording and stare at my reflection in the full-length mirror. The woman looking back at me isn't a victim. She's not the punchline to some society joke. She's her father's daughter, and she knows exactly what to do with evidence of fraud. My mother knocks again. Eden. Come in, Mom, I say, already reaching for my laptop. I need your help with something before the ceremony. Actually, I need your help planning a different kind of party. The wedding will still happen today, just not the one they're expecting. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just served cold, it's served to an audience. 2 months before the wedding, I sat across from Ryan at our favorite bistro, watching him pick at his salmon while I tried to find the right words. The waiter had just topped off our wine glasses, and the candlelight caught the edge of Ryan's perfect jawline, the same one that used to make my heart skip. Your mother called me nouveau riche at the engagement party, I said, keeping my voice steady. Right to my face, actually. Like it was some kind of joke we were supposed to share. Ryan's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Mom's just traditional. You know how she gets after a few glasses of wine. She was stone cold sober, and you know it. I took a sip of my Cabernet, remembering how I'd stepped down from senior management to help Ryan start his production company. Just like she was sober when she suggested I wear a different engagement ring because mine looked trying too hard. Eden, please. His smile appeared, practiced and camera ready. Can we not do this tonight? The Miller account is stressing me out, and the Miller account that I brought in? I set down my glass. The one where I convinced my old firm to hire your company instead of their usual production team? A muscle twitched in his jaw. I thought you wanted to help build something together. Building something together doesn't mean watching your sister mock my father's accent at every family dinner. The words came faster now. Years of swallowed pride rising like bile. It doesn't mean your mother sending me links to etiquette classes Or your father asking if my company offers diversity hires. They're trying their best. Ryan reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. I pulled back. This is new for them, having someone so different in the family. Different. I laughed, and heads turned at nearby tables. I run marketing campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. Your sister sells essential oils on Facebook and lives in your parents' pool house. That's not fair. His voice dropped to that patronizing whisper he used when he thought I was being difficult. Olivia's had a rough time since the divorce. And I've had a rough time watching $50,000 disappear from our joint account. The words hung between us like smoke. Want to explain those transfers to your family's business account? The perfect smile vanished. You've been checking my transactions? Our transactions, I corrected. And yes, ever since I noticed my retirement account looking a little light. Funny how that coincided with your parents' country club membership renewal. The business needed some temporary support. His fingers drummed against the tablecloth. I was going to tell you. When? After the wedding? After you finished draining my savings to prop up your family's lifestyle. You don't understand. Ryan leaned forward, his voice urgent. Dad's investments took a hit, and the club membership is crucial for networking. It's about maintaining appearances. Appearances. I stood up, my napkin falling to the floor. Like the appearance that you actually love me? Or just the appearance that your family isn't slowly bleeding me dry while treating me like something they scraped off their shoes? Eden, sit down. People are staring. Let them stare. I grabbed my purse. Maybe they'll learn something about what real class looks like. Where are you going? To call my father's accountant. I dropped enough cash on the table to cover both meals. And then to seriously reconsider whether I want to spend my life being your family's personal ATM. As I walked out, I heard him call after me, "You're overreacting. We can talk about this." But we couldn't talk about it. Not really. Because talking would mean acknowledging the truth I'd been avoiding since he first slipped that ring on my finger. Ryan didn't want a wife. He wanted a blank check with a pulse. I made it halfway to my car before my phone buzzed. A text from Linda, "Darling, about the wedding centerpieces, I've ordered new ones. More appropriate for a Bennett affair. I've put the deposit on your card. Hope you don't mind." Face blowing a kiss. I stared at the message, then started laughing. Sometimes the universe has a sick sense of timing. And sometimes it gives you exactly the push you need to stop playing nice and start playing smart. The bank statement trembled in my hands as I sat in my home office, staring at a series of transactions that told their own story of betrayal. Each line item was a knife in my back, methodically placed there by the man sleeping soundly in our bedroom. My laptop glowed with multiple tabs open. The Bennett family business records, my personal accounts, and our joint finances. The picture they painted made me sick. Not just the money, but the calculated precision of it all. Small transfers at first, growing larger as Ryan tested my trust. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda, "Darling, the wedding planner needs another deposit." I told her you'd handle it. She's such a dear, giving us the family discount. Family discount. I pulled up the planner's invoice, 30% above market rate. Another Bennett family friend getting fat off my account. The pieces clicked together like a poison puzzle. I dialed my father's number, checking the time, 11:30 p.m. He answered on the second ring. "Eden? Everything okay?" "Dad, I need your help." My voice cracked. "Remember when you said to trust my instincts about Ryan's business proposal? The production company expansion?" Papers rustled in the background. The numbers seemed optimistic. They were fabricated. I pulled up another document. I found the real books. The company's bleeding money, but somehow the Bennett family's lifestyle hasn't changed. Wanna guess why? A long pause. How much? 250,000. The number burned my throat. That's just what I can trace. They've been living off my savings, Dad. Using my connections. Even the country club membership. Eden. His voice sharpened. Get out of the house. Now. What? George Bennett called me last week, asking about leveraging your shares in Carter Industries as collateral for a loan. I told him those shares were in a trust. He seemed desperate. My blood ran cold. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made me freeze. Eden. Ryan's voice, thick with sleep. "Who are you talking to?" "Dad, I'll call you back." I ended the call as Ryan appeared in the doorway, his perfect hair mussed from sleep. Working late. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Just reviewing some numbers. I kept my voice steady, closing the laptop. Couldn't sleep. You should have woken me. He moved closer, and I caught a whiff of expensive cologne, the one I'd bought him last Christmas. We could have found something better to do than look at spreadsheets. Like discuss why you tried to use my shares as loan collateral? The smile vanished. Who told you that? Does it matter? I stood up, putting the desk between us. Were you going to tell me before or after you bankrupted me? It's not what you think. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous tell I used to find endearing. Dad's investments. There were some complications. We just need a temporary solution. The same temporary solution you've been taking from my accounts for the past year? I held up the bank statement. Or the temporary solution of charging personal expenses to my credit cards? Everything I did was for us. His voice rose. To maintain our lifestyle, our status. Your status. The laugh that escaped me was bitter. Your mother's status. Your sister's status. Tell me, Ryan, what exactly did I get out of this arrangement besides an empty bank account and a family that treats me like dirt? You got me. He stepped forward, reaching for my hand. Isn't that enough? The question hung in the air like smoke, and suddenly I saw him clearly. Not the charming man I'd fallen for, but the parasite he'd become. Or maybe had always been. No, I said softly. It's not nearly enough. His face darkened. Think carefully about what you're saying, Eden. My family. Your family has been bleeding me dry while mocking me behind my back. I picked up my phone. And I have proof of every transaction, every insult, every lie. Want to guess how that will play out in court? The mask slipped completely then, and I saw something ugly flash in his eyes. Something that made me glad I'd already called my father. You wouldn't dare, he whispered. I smiled, channeling his mother's perfect society smirk. Try me. I spent the night at my parents' house, my childhood bedroom, a sanctuary from the wreckage of my adult life. The morning brought an email from George Bennett that made my coffee turn bitter in my mouth. Eden, I hope you'll reconsider your rash actions. The prenuptial agreement clearly states. I stopped reading and called my lawyer. Sarah answered on the first ring. There is no prenup, I said without preamble. I never signed one. Check your files again, Sarah replied, her voice tight. Ryan's lawyer just sent over a copy. Your signature's on it. My hands shook as I opened my laptop, downloading the attachment she forwarded. There it was, my signature perfect in every detail, on a document I'd never seen. That's forgery. The words came out in a whisper. They forged my signature. Eden. My father appeared in the doorway, his face lined with concern. The Bennett's lawyer just called me. Something about your shares in Carter Industries being tied up in a marriage contract. The room tilted sideways. What? They're claiming you signed over voting rights as part of the prenup. He sat down heavily beside me. Did you? I never signed anything. But even as I said it, I remembered Ryan's insistence on handling all the wedding paperwork. His casual mentions of routine documents needing my signature. The stack of papers I'd trusted him to file properly. My phone buzzed. Linda Bennett calling. I let it go to voicemail. Sarah, I said into the phone, how long would it take to get a forensic document examiner? Already on it. Papers rustled in the background. But, Eden, there's something else. The company Ryan started? It's not just bleeding money. It's a shell. The contracts, the clients. They're all fake. The pieces clicked together with nauseating clarity. It was never about the wedding, was it? This whole thing was a setup from the beginning. My father's hand gripped my shoulder as another call came through. Olivia this time. Then George. Then Ryan. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree of betrayal. They're panicking, my father said softly. Which means they know we figured it out. A text from Ryan popped up, baby please. Let's talk about this. Everything I did was for us. Meet me at our spot. Our spot. The little cafe where he'd proposed. Where I'd first noticed something off about his smile but convinced myself I was being paranoid. I need to go, I said, standing. Eden, no. My father moved to block the door. This is exactly what they want. To get you alone, to pressure you into. Dad. I met his eyes. Trust me. I'm not the same person they thought they could manipulate. At the cafe, Ryan was already waiting, that familiar camera-ready smile in place. But now I saw the cracks in it, the calculation behind the charm. You look beautiful, he said, standing to pull out my chair. I remained standing. How long were you planning it? Planning what, baby? I don't. The long con. My voice carried across the quiet cafe. Was it your idea or your mother's? Target the successful executive, manufacture a romance, create a fake business to explain the money transfers. His smile flickered. Eden, and you're not thinking clearly. Let's discuss this privately. Like we privately discussed the prenup I never signed? I pulled out my phone, showing him the recording app. Or should we discuss it here, in front of all these witnesses? The mask cracked completely then. You have no idea what you're dealing with, he hissed. My family. Your family is finished. I smiled, channeling his mother's perfect society expression. And the best part? You did it to yourselves. I'm not just going to expose the fraud, Ryan. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who the Bennett family really is. I turned to leave, but his words followed me. You'll regret this. We're not done. No, I agreed, not looking back. We're just getting started. The wedding venue sparkled with fairy lights and false promises. I stood in the reception hall, watching the staff arrange centerpieces that Linda had chosen, paid for with my money, of course. My laptop sat ready on the DJ's table, connected to the sound system. Eden, Nancy, my mother, touched my arm. Are you sure about this? I showed her my phone screen, another email from George Bennett, threatening legal action if I didn't honor the prenuptial agreement I never signed. They're not just thieves, I said. They're predators. And they'll do this to someone else if I don't stop them. The guests started arriving, filling the hall with excited chatter. Linda swept in, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Our eyes met across the room, and her smile turned razor-sharp. Darling, she air-kissed my cheeks. You look adequate. Though I still think that neckline is a bit desperate for someone of your background. Thank you, Linda. I matched her smile. I wanted to make sure everyone could see exactly who I am. She caught the edge in my voice, her eyes narrowing slightly. Indeed. Though perhaps we should discuss some last-minute changes to the seating arrangements. And the prenup, of course. Of course. I gestured to the DJ's table. In fact, I have something special prepared for the reception. A little surprise for the family. Ryan appeared then, handsome in his tuxedo, that practiced smile firmly in place. But there was something else in his eyes now. Worry, maybe even fear. Baby, he said, taking my arm possessively. Can we talk privately? Actually, I replied loud enough for nearby guests to hear. I think it's time we all talk together. As a family. I moved to the DJ's table before they could stop me. The recording was queued up, ready to play through the expensive sound system Linda had insisted on. Everyone, I called out, my voice carrying across the hall. Before we begin, the Bennett family has prepared something special for us all. Ryan's face went pale. Eden, don't. I pressed play. Linda's voice filled the room, crystal clear. She's nothing but a social climber. Did you see how she pretends to know about wine? The room fell silent. Then Olivia's voice. Ryan could have done so much better. Linda lunged for the laptop, but I held my ground. As long as she keeps signing those checks, her recorded voice continued, I suppose we can tolerate her at Christmas. Turn it off. George Bennett's command boomed across the hall. Why? I asked, my voice steady. Isn't this what you wanted? For everyone to know the truth about our family. The recording continued, revealing every cruel comment, every financial scheme, every calculated manipulation. Guests started whispering, phones coming out to capture the moment. You're making a mistake, Ryan hissed, grabbing my arm. Think about what you're throwing away. I pulled free. Like the $250,000 you stole from me? Or the career I put on hold for your fake production company? I can explain. Explain the forged prenup? I raised my voice. Or should we discuss the fake marriage contract you tried to use to steal my shares in Carter Industries? Linda's perfect society mask cracked. You little. Choose your next words carefully. My father's voice cut through the chaos. He stood at the entrance, flanked by two men in suits. The SEC is very interested in hearing about your family's financial activities. The room erupted in gasps and hurried conversations. I watched as the Bennett family's carefully constructed facade crumbled in real time. "You've ruined everything," Ryan said, his charm finally giving way to raw anger. "No," I replied, removing my engagement ring. "I've just exposed what was already rotten." I dropped the ring into his champagne glass and watched it sink to the bottom, like all the lies and manipulation sinking into oblivion. "The wedding's off," I announced to the stunned crowd. "But please enjoy the cake. After all, I paid for it." 3 days after the wedding that wasn't, Ryan showed up at my parents' house with divorce papers and a smirk that made my skin crawl. I watched from the upstairs window as my father met him at the door, shoulders squared like he was facing down a hostile takeover. "Let me handle this," I heard Ryan say, his voice carrying through the open window. "Eden's being irrational. Once she calms down." "My daughter," my father cut in, "has never been more rational in her life." I descended the stairs just as Ryan pushed past him into the foyer. The morning light caught his wedding band. He was still wearing it, like a prop in his ongoing performance. "You've had your tantrum," Ryan said, waving the papers. "Now it's time to fix this mess you've made." "Mess I've made?" I glanced at the papers. "Like the mess of your forged prenup?" His smile tightened. "About that, turns out your signature's on quite a few documents. Transfer of property rights, power of attorney, investment authorizations. Would be a shame if those all came to light." My father stepped forward, but I held up my hand. "Are you threatening me, Ryan? I'm offering you a way out." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "Sign these papers, agree to our terms, and this all goes away quietly. Fight us and well." He shrugged. "Mom's already talking to the press about your mental health issues." "What mental health issues?" "The ones that made you have a public breakdown at our wedding." His smile turned predatory. "The ones that explain why you've been embezzling from your own company to fund your gambling addiction." My blood ran cold. "You wouldn't. Check your work email." He pulled out his phone, showing me a screen full of fabricated transactions. Amazing what a good video editor can do with financial records. The room swayed slightly. Everything I'd built, my reputation, my career, they'd planned to destroy it all along. "You're bluffing," I said, but my voice shook. "Am I?" He set the divorce papers on the table. "Linda's having lunch with your board chairman right now. Olivia's talking to HR about your inappropriate behavior at company events. And Dad? He's meeting with the SEC about some concerning patterns in your trading history." My father's hand gripped my shoulder. "We'll fight this." "With what evidence?" Ryan laughed. "Your daughter's word against a respected family's? Against documents she signed herself? Against witnesses who'll swear to her erratic behavior." "You mean the witnesses at the wedding?" I countered. "The ones who recorded everything?" "You mean these recordings?" He held up a flash drive. "Amazing how quickly people delete things when they're worried about defamation lawsuits. Check social media, it's like your little stunt never happened." He was right. I'd already noticed the disappearing posts, the deleted videos. The Bennett family's influence reaching far deeper than I'd imagined. "You have 24 hours, Ryan said, heading for the door. "Sign the papers, admit to a minor mental health episode, take a graceful leave from your company, and we'll let you keep enough to start over somewhere smaller. Fight us and we'll take everything." After he left, I sank into a chair, my victory at the wedding turning to ashes in my mouth. They'd planned for this, had contingencies ready. While I'd been playing checkers, they'd been playing chess. "We'll find a way," my father said, but I heard the worry in his voice. He knew as well as I did how thoroughly they'd trapped me. My phone buzzed. An email from my board chairman requesting an emergency meeting about concerning allegations. Another from HR about a pending investigation. A text from Linda. "Did you really think you could win against us?" I stared at the divorce papers, seeing my future crumbling before my eyes. They'd take my career, my reputation, my dignity, everything I'd spent years building. Unless, "Dad," I said slowly, "when did you say you last dealt with George Bennett?" "About 15 years ago. Why?" "Because I think it's time we compared notes about how the Bennett family does business. Sometimes, I realized, you have to lose everything to see what you've really got left to fight with." My father's study felt like a war room as we spread out 15 years of documents across his mahogany desk. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over paperwork that told a story the Bennetts never wanted told. George Bennett didn't just lose his investments, my father said, pointing to a highlighted section. He destroyed them deliberately. Insurance fraud on a massive scale. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw George Bennett himself standing on our porch alone. No Linda, no Ryan, no lawyers. Just a man who looked smaller than I remembered. Let him in, I told my father. George's hands shook slightly as he settled into the leather chair across from us. I assume you figured it out. That you've been running this same scam for decades? I pushed forward a stack of documents. Marry into money, fabricate business ventures, orchestrate failures, collect insurance payouts. Ryan wasn't just following the family tradition. He was repeating your exact playbook. Linda doesn't know, George said quietly. About any of it. I laughed, harsh and sharp. Really? That's your play? Protect Linda's reputation while she's out there destroying mine. You don't understand. He pulled out his phone, showing us his banking app. I'm not here to protect Linda. I'm here because as of this morning, she's emptied every account we have, including the offshore ones. My father leaned forward. She played you too. George nodded, deflating further. She's been planning this for years. Using my methods against me. Ryan isn't just my son. He's my replacement. Why tell us this? I demanded. Because in exactly, he checked his watch, 43 minutes, Linda is meeting with the SEC. She's going to pin everything on me and Eden. The loving mother protecting her son from his mentally unstable wife and criminally fraudulent father-in-law. My stomach dropped. She's throwing you under the bus to protect Ryan. No, George corrected. She's throwing me under the bus to protect herself. Ryan's just a bonus. He pulled out a USB drive. Which is why I brought you this. I stared at the small device. What is it? Everything. Every transaction, every scheme, every conversation. Linda thinks she's the only one who knows how to record people. His smile was bitter. Turns out paranoid husbands are good at it too. My father took the drive. Why should we trust you? Because Linda Bennett didn't just steal my money. She stole my life. My son. My legacy. George stood, straightening his jacket. And because in 40 minutes, she's going to destroy what's left of both our families unless we stop her. My phone buzzed, a text from Ryan. Mom's giving you one last chance. Meet us at the SEC office. Confess. Or else. I looked at George. They're expecting me to show up and take the fall. They are. He nodded. Linda loves an audience for her victories. Then let's give her what she wants. I grabbed my coat. Dad, call Sarah. Tell her to meet us there with the forensic accountant. George, you're driving. Eden, my father warned, if this goes wrong. It won't. I held up George's USB drive. Because for once, the Bennett family is going to experience something new. What's that? George asked. The truth. As we drove toward the SEC office, I thought about Linda's perfect society smile, Ryan's practiced charm, and all the lives they'd destroyed with both. My phone kept buzzing with threats disguised as concerned messages from Olivia, each one more desperate than the last. They thought they were setting a trap. They thought they knew exactly how this would play out. Just like they thought they knew me. But they'd forgotten something crucial. I wasn't just the woman who'd almost married into their family. I was the woman who'd survived them. And now, thanks to George's evidence and my father's research, I was also the woman who could end them. Ready? George asked as we pulled up to the SEC building. I saw Linda through the glass doors, her designer suit armor-like, Ryan at her side like a loyal soldier. They thought they were about to witness my surrender. Ready? I confirmed, stepping out of the car. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth. It's making your enemies watch as their own lies destroy them. The headlines read like poetry. Bennett family fraud empire exposed. Society mother faces SEC investigation. Wedding day whistleblower vindicated. I set the newspaper aside as Sarah handed me the final divorce papers. Ryan's not contesting anything, she said. Apparently, prison consultants are expensive. I signed my name, my real signature this time, watching the ink dry on the page that officially ended the Bennett family's hold over my life. Through my office window, I could see the city skyline, unchanged despite everything that had shifted beneath it. My phone buzzed, a text from George Bennett. Linda's taking a plea deal. Ryan too. Olivia's agreed to testify. Another buzz. Thank you for letting me make this right. I didn't respond. Some debts can't be repaid with gratitude, and some wounds don't need acknowledgement to heal. The intercom crackled. Miss Carter? The board is ready for you. I gathered my files, complete documentation of every transaction, every manipulation, every scheme the Bennetts had run through my company. The same evidence that had convinced the SEC to investigate them instead of me. Eden, my father met me outside the boardroom. You don't have to do this part. Actually, I do. I straightened my jacket. They need to understand exactly how it happened. How people like the Bennetts operate. Otherwise, they'll just fall for the next family with a perfect smile and empty promises. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. These were the same people who'd nearly believed Linda's lies about my mental health, who'd almost let Ryan's charm blind them to his theft. The Bennett family, I began, didn't just target me. They targeted this company. They targeted every person in this room who believed in trust and integrity over appearances. Heads nodded. Papers shuffled. But their greatest weapon wasn't their fraud or their forgeries. I met each board member's eyes. It was our willingness to doubt ourselves instead of questioning them. To accept their version of reality because challenging it seemed. Impolite. The chairman cleared his throat. We've reviewed your evidence, Miss Carter. The board would like to formally reinstate you as marketing director, with a promotion too. No. The word hung in the air like a dropped glass. No. I'm not here to take my old position back. I placed a folder on the table. I'm here to present my proposal for a new division. Corporate fraud prevention and authentication services. Because the Bennetts aren't an anomaly, they're a symptom. As I outlined my plan, I saw understanding dawn in their eyes. This wasn't just about revenge or justice anymore. It was about transformation, turning wounds into wisdom, betrayal into protection for others. Later, in my father's study, I found an envelope with no return address. Inside was a handwritten note from Linda Bennett. You think you've won. Maybe you have. But remember this. Everything I did, every lie I told, every scheme I ran, it worked because people wanted to believe. They wanted the fantasy we offered. Someone will always want that fantasy. Remember that when you're sleeping soundly in your victory. I turned the note over, considering her words. Then I added it to my files, not as a warning, but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in ensuring they can never harm anyone else. My phone buzzed one last time, George again. Linda asked me to beg for mercy. I told her you'd already shown it by leaving her with the one thing she values most. What's that? I texted back. The truth about herself. I smiled, closing the file on the Bennett family for the last time. Some people collect trophies of their victories. Others collect headlines or settlements or apologies. Me? I collected something far more valuable. The knowledge that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's life. It's about forcing them to live with who they really are.